many outlaws who will become household names in the 1930s. One will be idolized above all others. John Dillinger, also known as Snake Eyes. In a 10-year career of lawlessness, Dillinger will become the hero of the American press, hailed as the new Jesse James. By the day of his death, he will be the United States official public enemy #1.
The majority of people, when asked about John Dillinger, think about his bank robbing career, wild police chases, and his dramatic death in front of a Chicago movie theater. Few people think about Melvin Purvis, the FBI agent given credit for capturing Dillinger, who became a hero at a time when the country was going through the Great Depression. Even though he is not well remembered, he had an enormous impact on Chicago by cleaning up organized crime, but more importantly by helping the FBI become what it is today. Melvin Purvis was born in 1903 in South Carolina. He was a middle-class Southerner. He was a young lawyer and was asked by J. Edgar Hoover to join a new profession. In 1927, Melvin Purvis, without any law enforcement background, joined the Bureau of Investigation. Purvis initially wanted to become a diplomat, but the State Department was not hiring anyone. He therefore became a special agent with the Justice Department. Purvis was an excellent field agent and flew through ranks quickly, and many believe that Hoover was training him for executive positions. Hoover really liked Purvis, and after placing him head of the investigation offices in Birmingham, Oklahoma City, and in Cincinnati, he was placed in charge of the Chicago office in 1932. Chicago was a center of crime at the time, and he was the youngest person to hold that position. In March 1934, Hoover had Purvis develop a network of informants to capture Dillinger. In April 1934, Dillinger committed a federal crime by driving a stolen car across state lines. After this event, Purvis was pressured by the government to pursue Dillinger. After 2 failed attempts, on July 1934, Chicago brothel owner Anna Sage called Purvis to tell him that Dillinger had invited her to the movies that night. Purvis was waiting outside the theater. Purvis lit a cigar to signal the other agents that he had spotted Dillinger. Dillinger realized that he had been caught and ran to a nearby alley. While he was pulling out a gun, he was shot by 2 officers. Right away, Melvin Purvis was known as the Ace G-Man. He was the guy who got Dillinger. To see how the public responded to the event, I interviewed my grandfather, Joe Bowden. He was a young boy when Dillinger died, but still remembers what happened.
Joe Bowden, no middle name, never had one. First name is Joseph, born May 8th, 1925. In the days of John Dillinger, it was the 3rd or 4th year of the Depression. Many people lost their farms, lost their homes to the banks, and people did not like banks. John Dillinger was a bank robber, so he became a Robin Hood hero. And he always treated people, except for police or bank employees, very nice, and people enjoyed at times being with him. Mm-hmm. At the time John Dillinger was gunned down, I was 9 years old. It was a big thing in our neighborhood because the Cook County morgue was only 3 blocks from my house, and that's where they showed his body, and people lined up for 2 days, block long lines. My brother George went to view the body, as thousands of people did. No, we didn't care for him. We were happy that he was gone, along with many of the others. But he was public enemy #1.
As Purvis gained national fame, Hoover became extremely jealous. He began assigning Purvis to bad cases, and everyone in the Chicago office believed that Hoover wanted to ruin Purvis's career. In the FBI files for the Dillinger case, Hoover even omitted Purvis and replaced him with Sam Cowley as the lead investigator. 1 year after capturing Dillinger, after 9 years of service, Purvis resigned.
I have just completed 8.5 years in the service of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, United States Department of Justice, and I'm leaving that service with considerable regret.
On July 10th, 1935, less than a year after his rendezvous with Dillinger, Purvis resigns from the Bureau. But Hoover isn't finished with him yet.
Hoover hated seeing Purvis get any recognition for his part in the Dillinger case. And I think at that point, the yes men surrounding Hoover went further probably than even Hoover expected, and they began to erase him completely from the FBI as story.
The Dillinger case is central to his autobiography, but in it, Hoover omits Purvis's role altogether. Purvis even vanishes from the official FBI map of the Biograph Theater ambush. The vendetta continues throughout Purvis's life. Job offers are suddenly withdrawn. Business partners unexpectedly get cold feet.
One of the really sad stories in the FBI was Hoover's continual persecution of Purvis long after Purvis had left the Bureau. There's a paper trail showing that Hoover was sabotaging Purvis's efforts to get high-ranking jobs in other government agencies, and it was a matter that persisted right until Purvis's death.
How do you think Hoover used the Dillinger case to increase his power?
He took all the credit for it and didn't give Purvis any credit. Purvis, from what I've heard later, resigned the FBI because of that. He took all the credit. He would not give anybody any credit or anybody's name used. If an agent shot somebody or something, Hoover got on radio or newsreels and did explain it.
And how do you think the FBI... If you look at the history of the FBI, you find that the 1930s were very important years. The Bureau of Investigation, not yet federal at the time, was informed in 1908. J. Edgar Hoover was the first director in 1924, and he was responsible for how it became the FBI in 1935. During the 1930s, or the Public Enemy time period, the FBI killed a number of notorious criminals who carried out bank robberies and murders throughout the nation. Some of these people were John Dillinger, Babyface Nelson, and George Machine Gun Kelly. J. Edgar Hoover used these events to form the FBI and increase funding. In April 1936, Hoover went to the Department of Justice to appear before an appropriations subcommittee to discuss the Bureau's budget. He used his successes with capturing gangsters to try and increase the budget from $2.5 million in 1934 to $5 million, claiming that the Bureau turned the tide in the war on crime. Hoover was criticized for killing all the criminals instead of arresting them, but he received an increased budget. In the 1940s, World War II rose and the Bureau's main focus was espionage. During the 1950s and 60s, the FBI also became increasingly concerned with the influence of civil rights leaders. In the 1980s, the FBI was in the war on drugs, and now they primarily deal with terrorism. In conclusion, Melvin Purvis has had a significant influence on history because not only did he lead Chicago in the successful investigations on criminals, but he also played an important role in the establishment of the FBI. The FBI is crucial in keeping us safe today, and all of our lives would be different if it wasn't for Melvin Purvis.
Despite attempts to rewrite history, Melvin Purvis is now remembered as a real untouchable. A man who gave America someone to look up to in the dark days of the Depression.
There was a need for a hero that represented the other side, the other values. And my father provided that hero. He was a hero.